My name is Andy. I'm 38 years old. I'm a market analyst, and this is a story that happened in my life in the summer of 2018 about my wife cheating on me. I hope this story brings some more thoughts to your mind. And here's the beginning of this story. In a fine restaurant in Philadelphia, I sat in a window seat and waited quietly for my client to arrive. The decor of the restaurant was elegant yet modern. The silver cutlery shimmered coldly under the lights, and the flowers on the table gave off a faint aroma. However, this tranquil atmosphere was suddenly shattered, and my mood rippled. Just as I was unconsciously scanning the dining room, a familiar figure came into my sight. It was my wife, Susan, who was sitting face to face with a middle-aged man, the two of them sharing dinner and having a good conversation. I fixed my eyes on the man, and that man turned out to be Susan's boss, Jeff Davis. My heartbeat suddenly accelerated, and as if pulled by an invisible force, I couldn't take my eyes off of them. I watched as they laughed and laughed, Susan's face beaming with pleasure, a look I hadn't seen in a long time. And in her smile, it was as if I saw a crack in our marriage, a crack as deep as the Great Rift Valley in East Africa. My mood became complicated and difficult to express: anger, disappointment, doubt, all kinds of emotions intertwined together, like a messy hemp entangled in my heart. I recalled our once sweet time. Those vows and promises seemed to be still echoing in my ears, but the scene in front of me makes me feel incomparably ironic. Susan used to be the most important person in my life, and we spent many happy hours together. However, as time went by, cracks gradually appeared in our marriage. I have tried to mend these cracks, but failed every time. And now, looking at the picture of her laughing and joking with another man, I finally understood the real reason for those cracks. I gripped the napkin in my hand tightly, anger burning in my heart. I wanted to rush over and question them. Why did they betray me? But on second thought, what was the point of such questioning? Even if I got an answer, it wouldn't change the established facts. I took a deep breath and tried to calm my agitation. However, the hurt in my heart could not be calmed. I began to think back to the little moments between us, and those beautiful memories pierced my heart like a sharp blade. Just then, my thoughts were suddenly drawn back to a night 2 years ago. It was a cold winter night, and I had come home early for work. When I walked into my bedroom, I found Susan sitting in front of the computer, intently tapping away at the keyboard. I wanted to surprise her, but instead I accidentally found an email I had forgotten to delete. The email was sent to Susan by Jeff Davis, and its content was full of ambiguity and teasing. I was like being struck by lightning, frozen in place. The shock in my heart could not be described in words. At that moment, it was as if I had fallen into an abyss, and the blood in my body froze. I used to think that our marriage was indestructible, but at that moment I realized that everything was so fragile and vulnerable. I couldn't accept this cruel reality, and the pain and disappointment in my heart was beyond words. I recall Susan's panicked look and incoherent explanations that night as she kept apologizing and promising not to make the same mistake in the future. However, her promises now seemed to pale in comparison. I couldn't believe any more of her words, and the rift in my heart could no longer be healed. Watching Susan and Jeff Davis get close in front of me, I finally realized the irony of fate. I once thought I had everything, but I didn't expect to lose it all without realizing it. I felt immense pain and helplessness, as if the whole world had collapsed. That day's chance encounter at the restaurant was like throwing a stone into my peaceful life, and the ripples of suspicion and anger spread out so that I could no longer be calm. I had thought that our love was an impregnable fortress, yet that scene made me realize that something had changed in silence. When I got home, I sat alone in my dimly lit room. The doubt and anger in my heart was like a volcano about to erupt, and the roaring flames seemed to break through my chest. I couldn't accept Susan's betrayal, much less the fact that she was sharing intimate moments with other men. I knew that I had to take action to expose the truth behind this and find justice for myself. Susan hadn't come home yet, which was giving me my chance. I sat in front of her computer and watched as the place that was once filled with memories we shared was now a clue to the revelation of betrayal. I took a deep breath, tried to calm my excitement, and got to work installing the surveillance software. Although I had some knowledge of computer technology, My hands still trembled slightly at this critical moment. However, the installation process wasn't too difficult, and it was quickly completed. Over the next few days, like a detective, I carefully logged Susan's emails and calls. Whenever night fell, I would sit in front of my computer and carefully skim through her secrets. I found that Susan's email exchanges with Jeff Davis were unusually frequent and intimate, and they not only discussed their work, but also shared bits and pieces of their lives. From their conversations, I saw Susan's admiration and dependence on Jeff, as well as Jeff's ambiguity and teasing towards her. And what shocked me even more was that Bill Evans was also involved, and their relationship seemed to be more complicated than I had imagined. As I browsed through these records, my emotions were like a roller coaster of ups and downs. I saw the intimacy and tenderness with which Susan addressed them, and I saw Susan's big smile on the photos of their vacations together, something I hadn't seen on her face in a long time. I saw them laughing at me behind my back, talking about me contemptuously as if I were a worthless clown. Every word, every picture was like a sharp knife, stabbing my heart deeply. I felt as if I had fallen into a bottomless abyss, surrounded by darkness and only endless cold and despair. However, I knew I couldn't just be defeated. This evidence is not only hard evidence of Susan's betrayal of me, but it's also the weapon I need to get justice for myself. I'm going to show her that betrayal and deception have a price. As I waited for Susan to come home, I went over the evidence again and again to make sure I didn't miss any details. When Susan finally came home, an inexplicable sadness welled up in my heart as I saw her familiar yet unfamiliar face. The woman I had loved so much was now the one who had hurt me the most. I didn't expose her right away because I wanted to give her a chance to explain herself, even though I knew the explanation might just be futile. In the days that followed, we continued our outwardly peaceful life, but my heart was already turning over. I knew that this war to expose the truth had just begun, and I had to be fully prepared to maximize the benefits for myself. At the same time, I had to show Susan that the mistakes she had made would cost her dearly. The emails, chats, and photos were like a silent script revealing the sordid affairs between my wife and her boss and partner. The anger in my heart was like a tidal wave, but I also realized that mere anger would not solve the problem. I needed to face all this calmly and rationally. So, I decided to seek legal assistance. I thought of my college friend Ted Worth, who is an experienced lawyer specializing in business and family law cases. I believed that he would be able to give me professional legal advice and help me out of this predicament. I contacted Ted and arranged to meet at his office. When I walked into his office with the evidence I had gathered, I saw him sitting at his desk, carefully reviewing a document. He looked up and saw me with a deep expression on his face. "Andy, what brings you here? Is something wrong?" Ted asked. I took a deep breath, handed him the bag of papers in my hand, and said, "Ted, I'm in some trouble and I need your help." Ted took the paper bag suspiciously and opened it to look at it. His expression gradually became serious, and I knew that he had already seen the evidence. He carefully flipped through each document, frowning in thought from time to time. After a while, Ted looked up at me with sympathy and seriousness in his eyes. "Andy, the evidence is overwhelming," he said. "Susan, Jeff, and Bill's behavior has constituted betrayal and fraud. You have the right to take legal action to protect your rights." Hearing Ted say that finally put a big rock in my heart. I knew that I wasn't on my own and that I had the law at my back. "So, what should I do now?" I asked. Ted pondered for a while, then said, "First, we need to further organize this evidence to ensure their authenticity and integrity. Then, we can send a lawyer's letter to Susan, Jeff, and Bill, warning them to stop this behavior and demanding compensation from them." "What if they refuse?" I pursued. "If they refuse," Ted's eyes grew firm, "we can present this evidence to the court and file a lawsuit. I'm sure the law will give you a fair judgment." After listening to Ted's advice, I felt a surge of strength come over me. I know that this fight may be long and hard, but if I stay the course, I will get the justice I deserve. "Thank you, Ted," I said gratefully. "I'll do as you suggest." After leaving Ted's office, I returned home. Looking at the empty room, I remembered what I used to do with Susan. However, I also knew that it was all in the past. Now, What I have to do is not to dwell on the pain of the past, but to bravely face the reality and fight for my due rights. Over the next few days, I began to organize the evidence I had gathered and prepare to send attorney's letters to Susan, Jeff, and Bill. Sitting in Ted's office, I felt calmer and more determined than ever. Scattered on the table in front of me was all the evidence I'd gathered, which spoke silently of Susan, Jeff, and Bill's betrayal, while Ted sat across from me, his brow furrowed as he carefully scrutinized each document. "Andy, the evidence is strong enough." Ted finally spoke, his voice full of professionalism and determination. "We have two options now. One is to file a lawsuit directly, and the other is to try to settle privately first." I took a deep breath, knowing the importance of this decision. "Which do you think is more favorable?" I asked. Ted contemplated for a moment. "A private settlement would probably be quicker and more low-key. But if they refuse to settle, we'll have to file a lawsuit." I nodded, my mind made up. "Let's try to settle first then." I said, "If they don't want to, we'll go through the legal process again." Ted nodded in agreement. "Okay, then we'll start by sending them a warning letter, making it clear where we stand and what we want," he said, starting to draft the letter. I sat on the sidelines, watching Ted skillfully tapping away at his keyboard with mixed feelings. I was both looking forward to the reconciliation working out and dreading facing Susan and their reactions. But I knew that no matter what, I had to be strong and face it. Soon, Ted finished the draft of the warning letter and handed it to me to read. I read the letter carefully and nodded in satisfaction. "Very well, just send it out," I said. Ted smiled and nodded, then sent the warning letter over the internet to Susan, Jeff, and Bill. The next few days began a long wait. During that time, every day was like walking on a tightrope with tense and mixed emotions. I was looking forward to Susan and the others responding to our warnings, but at the same time, I was afraid that their response would not be what I wanted. Ted, on the other hand, was always by my side, giving me unwavering support and encouragement. A few days later, we received a response from Susan. In her letter, she apologized and was willing to engage in settlement talks with us. Seeing her response brought a wave of mixed emotions to my heart. There was both relief and pain. We have a face-to-face negotiation coming up with Susan, Jeff, and Bill that will be a tough and long one. The sky was cloudy that day, as if to echo my mood at the moment. Accompanied by Ted, I stepped into the same restaurant we'd been to many times before, only this time, the atmosphere was very different. Susan, Jeff Davis, and Bill Evans were already waiting, all with varying degrees of nervousness and unease on their faces. I sat down and looked directly at the three of them. Susan's eyes were a little averted while Jeff and Bill tried to remain as calm as possible. I took a deep breath and decided to just show my cards. "Susan, Jeff, Bill," my voice was firm and calm. "I didn't come here today to argue or fight with you. I'm just here to show you all this evidence." With that, I pulled out a stack of printed emails, chats, and photos from a folder and laid them out in front of them one by one. These were hard evidence of Susan's inappropriate relationship with Jeff and Bill. When the three of them saw the evidence, their faces turned pale. Susan stared at the words and pictures in disbelief, as if she couldn't accept the fact. Jeff and Bill, on the other hand, glanced at each other with a flash of panic in their eyes. "What are these?" Susan asked in a shaky voice. "These are the proofs that you betrayed me," I said coldly. "Do you think I have no knowledge of your affair with Jeff and Bill?" Susan lowered her head and was speechless. Jeff, on the other hand, tried to argue. "Andy, let me explain. It's just between Susan and I." "Just what?" I interrupted. "Just a working relationship? Or just a fling?" Jeff was silent for a moment, then sighed. "I'll admit, there have been some moves between Susan and I that went beyond our working relationship, but we didn't do anything to wrong you." When I heard this, I couldn't help but sneer. "Didn't do anything to wrong me? Then how do you explain this evidence?" Bill spoke up at that point. "Andy, we're all sorry. We know it wasn't right, but things like feelings are hard to control." I looked at the three of them, my heart filled with disappointment and anger. I had trusted them so much and treated them as friends and partners, but I never thought they would betray me like this. "Is it useful for you guys to talk about this now?" I asked coldly, You've already betrayed me. Do these apologies and explanations change anything?" The three of them were silent for a moment. Then Susan looked up at me. "Andy, I know we were wrong. We're willing to take all the consequences." I looked at her sincere eyes and the anger in my heart calmed down a little. However, I knew that this matter would not end so easily. "Okay," I said. "Since you're willing to take responsibility, let's talk about how to resolve this." After countless rounds of negotiations and talks, we finally failed to reach a consensus. Susan, Jeff, and Bill were never willing to admit their mistakes, let alone make any kind of compensation to me. Faced with their stubbornness and relentlessness, Ted and I made an important decision: to release all the evidence we had collected to the public and let the public judge their behavior. "Andy, are you sure you want to do this?" Ted reconfirmed. "There's no turning back after this step." I nodded firmly. "Yes, I'm sure. I can't just let them get away with this. I'm going to show everyone their true colors." So we started contacting the local news media. At first, some of the media were skeptical of our story, but when they saw the hard evidence we had in our hands, their attitudes changed immediately. They realized that this was a sensational story, enough to get the attention of the entire city. Soon, the time for the press conference was set. On that day, Ted and I arrived at the venue early, facing a group of reporters and cameras. I was both nervous and full of anticipation. I knew that this would be the day I would make a name for myself and get justice for myself. At the press conference, I began by thanking everyone in the room and giving a brief overview of my situation and what happened to me. Ted then began to show the evidence we had collected, including emails, call logs, and even some photos and videos of Susan's close meetings with Jeff and Bill. As the evidence was presented one by one, the atmosphere in the meeting room gradually became tense. Reporters raised their hands to ask questions, wanting to know more details. I remained calm and composed and answered their questions one by one. "Andy, are you disappointed in Susan's behavior?" a reporter asked. "Of course I'm disappointed." I confessed. I had loved her dearly, but she betrayed me and our marriage. It hurts me so much. "And is there anything you'd like to say to Susan, Jeff, and Bill right now?" Another reporter pressed. I took a deep breath and said slowly, "I hope they will admit their mistakes and pay for them. At the same time, I hope that everyone will learn from my experience and cherish their marriages and families." After the launch, we left the venue. Outside, there were many people gathered on the street, all of them discussing the news that had just been released. I felt an unprecedented sense of relief and release, as if 1,000 pounds had been lifted. Although there was still a long road ahead, I knew that I had already taken the hardest step. Since the press conference, it was as if I had been pulled back from the edge of an abyss and regained my footing. The public attention and the pressure of public opinion had become my strongest backing, while Susan, Jeff, and Bill were in a predicament they had never been in before. During that time, I often imagined how the three of them must have felt when faced with such immense social pressure and internal turmoil within the company. Especially Susan, who used to be the closest person in my life, has now become a target. I don't know if she will regret what she has done, but at least in this moment, she must face the consequences of her actions. Ted told me that the ad agency had begun to feel the pinch of lost clients and shrinking business. They were anxious to calm the storm and hoped to resolve the problem through financial compensation. When I heard this news, a wave of mixed emotions came over me. On the one hand, I felt relieved that I had been able to win such an outcome. On the other hand, I felt a tinge of sadness for Susan and her company. However, when I thought about the hurt and betrayal I had suffered, I knew I could not afford to be soft. I had to get myself the compensation I deserved, not only to account for myself, but also to punish those who betrayed and hurt me. The negotiation process did not go well. Susan's company was not willing to pay much compensation at first, and they tried to use various reasons to keep the amount down. However, with Ted's reasoning and my firmness, they finally agreed to our request. When I got that compensation, I had mixed feelings. It wasn't just a sum of money, it was the dignity and justice I had fought for myself. I gripped the document in my hand so hard that it was as if I could feel the heavy victory. At that moment, I suddenly realized a truth. In this world, only I can fight for my own true rights and dignity. I could not count on the sympathy and compassion of others, let alone hope for the repentance and apology of the betrayer. I must rely on my own strength to fight for everything that belongs to me. While financial compensation is important, what's more important is that I've won back my dignity and self-confidence. I know that there is still a long way ahead, but I am ready to face everything. I am no longer the same Andy who was bullied by others, but a person who dares to face challenges and fight for my rights. The day the settlement came in, I asked Ted out for a drink to celebrate. We sat in the corner of the bar, raised our glasses, and laughed. At that moment, I felt more relaxed and at ease than ever before. I knew that I had stepped out of that dark shadow and ushered in a new life. Andy, you really did it. Ted looked at me with an appreciative glint in his eye. I'm so proud of you. I smiled and didn't say anything, but I knew that it was all worth it. I was proud of myself, proud that I had won the fight. I was no longer the weak Andy, but a strong, courageous person who dared to face everything. While financial compensation is important, it is not my ultimate goal. My real goal was to get justice for myself and make those who betrayed and hurt me pay. And now, I have done that. I have not only won compensation, but also my dignity and self-confidence. I know that the road ahead is still long, but I am ready to face everything. I am going to use my own strength to create a new life that belongs to me and to meet the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead. Also, I know full well what this compensation means to me. It is not just compensation for the injuries I suffered in the past, but an investment in my future life. I will use it to plan my future with a more positive mindset, whether it's improving my professional skills or finding a new direction in life. After the compensation money arrived, my life began to change forever. I decided to use the funds to invest in myself and start a new life. Part of that plan was to revamp my image. I started to focus on my health and appearance. In the past, I always neglected physical exercise because of my busy schedule, but now I have enough time and money to change that. I joined a high-end gym and spend hours every day working out. I fell in love with that tired feeling after exercise, and it makes me feel energized every day. Apart from working out, I have also started changing my dressing style. Before, I always wore a simple shirt and suit pants, but now I started to try more styles. I bought some fashionable clothes and learned how to mix and match them to make myself look more young and energetic. Every time I put on new clothes and look in the mirror, I can see a whole new me. These changes made me more confident and allowed me to make new progress in my work. Thanks to my expertise in market analysis and my new image, I gradually stood out in the company. Leaders began to notice me and gave me more opportunities to showcase my talents. Finally, the day came when I was promoted to head the market analysis department of the company. This was a major turning point in my career and an important milestone in my self-rebirth. I knew that this position was not only a recognition of my past efforts, but also of my future potential. In this new position, I have more responsibility and authority. I started to lead the team to conduct market research, analyze competitors, and develop more effective marketing strategies for the company. I love this challenge. It makes me feel that every day is full of meaning. Of course, these changes have not been easy. I have had my share of difficulties and setbacks, but I have never given up. I know that I can only become a better version of myself if I keep working hard and challenging myself. In the process, I also began to re-examine my life and values. I began to pay attention to my inner world and learned how to live with myself. I began to read, travel, make friends, and make my life more colorful. I also began to think about my future. I know that although I have achieved something, this is just the beginning. I still have a lot of dreams and goals unfulfilled, and I need to keep working hard. The process of self-rebirth has been a long and arduous journey, but it has also taught me a lot. I have learned how to love myself, how to face setbacks, and how to pursue my dreams. I believe that I will become stronger, more confident, and more empowered in the days ahead. Now, when I think back to those dark days, I feel incredibly grateful. Without that experience, I may never have realized how strong I am. It was that experience that taught me how to face life's challenges and how to become a better version of myself. Nowadays, I am no longer the weak, confused Andy. I have become a more mature and confident person. I know where my value lies and what I want. I will continue to work hard to move forward and pursue my dreams and goals. In the process, I also learned the true meaning of life. Life is not all smooth sailing. It is full of challenges and difficulties. But it is these challenges and difficulties that make us stronger and more mature. We need to learn to face the ups and downs of life and bravely pursue our dreams. And my dream is to become a better version of myself and create more value for myself and those around me. I believe that if I continue to work hard, this dream will be realized. Since I started to be in charge of the market analysis of supermarkets, I have been running to the supermarket frequently. The supermarket's night department head, Lucy Sanchez, a dynamic and enthusiastic woman, gradually came to my attention. The first time I met Lucy was in an evening. She was busy directing the staff to organize the shelves, with a strong posture and concentration. The setting sun poured on her face through the window, reflecting a golden glow. In that moment, it was as if I saw another possibility of life. In the days that followed, I began to approach her intentionally or unintentionally. Perhaps it was fate that we always met each other in the corners of the supermarket. Every time we met, she would give me a big smile, which was as warm and bright as the spring sunshine. Gradually, we began to talk more. She told me about her dreams, her love for work, and her expectations for life. I found her to be a girl full of vigor and pursuit, and her tenacity and optimism deeply infected me. As time went on, our relationship heated up. I began to invite her to dinner and to watch movies together. During that time, it was as if we had returned to our youthful days, carefree and enjoying each other's company. One warm evening in a French restaurant in Philadelphia, I worked up the courage to confess my love for her. I told her that I liked her, her tenacity, her optimism, everything about her. She froze upon hearing this, tears glistening in her eyes. After a while, she slowly nodded her head and agreed with me. At that moment, I felt immensely happy and content. I knew that I had stepped out of the shadow of the past and started a new life. And Lucy, the sunshine in my new life, illuminated my way forward. Our romance was going well. We traveled to many places and saw many sights together. We shared each other's joys and sorrows and faced life's challenges together. During that time, I felt incredibly fulfilled and happy. Of course, our romance was not all smooth sailing. We've had our share of fights and misunderstandings, but each time we've been able to resolve them with mutual tolerance and understanding. I know that such experiences have only made our relationship deeper. As time went by, I started to think about our future. I didn't want to live blindly like I did in the past. I wanted to give Lucy a stable future, so I started to work harder and fight for our future. And Lucy has always been there for me. She told me that no matter what the future holds, she will always be there for me. Her support and understanding made me stronger in my beliefs and goals. During that time, we became each other's spiritual support. We faced the challenges and difficulties of life together and shared the joys and happiness of life together. Our relationship grew deeper and stronger. I knew I had fallen deeply in love with this girl. She is not only my lover, but also my confidant and friend. Every day we are together is full of joy and happiness. I began to look forward to our future and how we could always walk hand in hand. I have also started to re-examine my life and values, and Lucy's presence has made me appreciate the life I have now and made me more clear about my goals and direction. I know what I want, and I know I should work hard for it. During our relationship, I also learned how to love someone better. I started to pay attention to her feelings and needs and learned to listen and understand her. I also started trying to do special things for her to make her feel my love and care. Our romance was heating up, and I was starting to think about our future. I knew I wanted to be with Lucy all the time for the rest of our lives. That day, as the sunlight flooded the streets of Philadelphia, I held the signed divorce papers in my hand with mixed feelings. But no matter what, it was over, and Susan and I were legally severed from each other once and for all. Perhaps it was a relief for both of us. I walked home with light steps, as if 1,000 pounds had been lifted. The past, whether happy or painful, was in the past. Now, I'm going to start a new life and meet new challenges. Lucy, on the other hand, was a big part of my new life. We met at the supermarket, a place I used to frequent. Her smile always makes me feel warm and at ease. Our time together was always so happy and fulfilling. I started thinking about our future. I didn't want to let the past affect my present life anymore, and I wanted to give Lucy a stable future. So I started planning our future, including marriage, life, and a whole lot of other things. I know it will take time and hard work, but I am willing to give it a go for our future. Lucy has also been there for me, and her understanding and support has helped me to be more determined in my beliefs and goals. As time went by, our relationship grew closer. We started planning our future together and discussing life together. I found myself relying on her more and more and loving her more and more. One sunny Sunday morning, I invited Lucy to join me for a peaceful Sunday brunch at the Philadelphia Country Club. She readily agreed, and we drove to that beautiful place. The country club is a very elegant setting with lush greenery and birdsong. We found a seat by the window and ordered some delicious food and drinks. The sunlight poured through the window and warmed us up. We chatted as we savored the food. We talked about our future plans and what we were looking forward to in life. Lucy told me that she wanted a cozy family, and I told her that I would try my best to give her a bright future. At that moment, I felt immensely happy and satisfied. I looked at Lucy's face and my heart was filled with love. I knew that I had fallen deeply in love with this girl. She was the sunshine of my life and my hope for the future. After enjoying a delicious brunch, Lucy and I strolled through the gardens of the country club. We walked hand in hand, feeling the warmth and love for each other. I watched her smile blossom in the sunlight, and my heart was filled with gratitude and happiness. "Andy, what do you think our future holds?" Lucy asked suddenly. I stopped and looked at her fondly. "I don't know what the future holds, but I do know that no matter what happens in the future, I will always be there for you together." Lucy heard this and held my hand tightly. "Me too. No matter the storm, we'll walk through it together." At that moment, our eyes were filled with anticipation for the future and love for each other. We continued to stroll through the garden, enjoying the peace and coziness. Life after the divorce was not as hard as I thought it would be. On the contrary, with Lucy's company, I gradually came out of the shadow of the past and started a new life. We faced the challenges and difficulties of life together and shared the joy and happiness of life together. I've also started working harder to fight for our future. I know I want to give Lucy a stable future, so I'm going to work hard to build a solid foundation for our future. And Lucy has always been there for me. Her support and understanding has given me more confidence to face the challenges ahead. Together we plan for the future and look forward to a wonderful life. Time passed unnoticed, and before we knew it, it was fall. My relationship with Lucy was also growing stronger, and we were starting to think about getting married. I knew I wanted to spend the rest of my life with her, so I was going to give her a romantic proposal. So I got to work planning the proposal. I wanted to give her an unforgettable memory. I set up a romantic proposal site in a beautiful park in Philadelphia and invited her best friends and family to witness the big moment. When I walked into the proposal site holding her hand, she had a surprised and happy smile on her face. I looked at her fondly. "Lucy, will you marry me? Will you spend the rest of your life with me?" She was so excited that she shed tears of happiness. "I do. I'm willing to walk with you through every spring, summer, fall, and winter." At that moment, we hugged each other tightly, feeling the warmth and love for each other, and we made a promise to each other in the presence of our friends and family. Our lives will be better and happier from now on because we love each other, support each other, and move forward together. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's story. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you have a story to share about your own or someone else's experience, please feel free to contact me. Take care.